Hello and welcome to another standard gameplay video on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're taking a look at an updated version of Mono White Aggro with the new cards from Phyrexia, all will be one. The main addition being Phyrexia Vindicator, quadruple white for a 5/5 flyer, saying if damage would be dealt to the Vindicator, we get to prevent that damage and to redirect it to any other target. So that applies to combat damage dealt by opposing creatures, but also some damage-based removal spells or sweepers, so especially red and green decks will struggle to get rid of a Vindicator once in play, and then a 5/5 flyer can end the game in just a couple attacks. So to make room for Vindicator, of course, we need to have all white mana in our mana base, so no room for Mishra's Foundry, which is a main card we're giving up by including Vindicator, but the deck wanted to play a lot of planes for the 4 copies of Laydown Arms anyway, which exiles a target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of planes we control, although they do get to gain 3 life in return, which is a bit of a drawback since we're an aggressive deck, but the tempo advantage we gain from casting a 1-mana removal spell is still huge. Then we also get to play with 3 copies of Skrelv Defector Might as another new addition, a 1/1 legendary Might with Toxic 1, so it applies 1 poison counter if it hits the opponent, and it also cannot block like all other Mights. And then we can either pay 2 life for white mana, tap Skrelv, choose a color, and another target creature we control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn, and it also cannot be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So it's very similar to Protection, although there are a few subtle differences, so we can still use it to attack past any blockers on a stalled board if the opponent only has 1 color back on defense, and we can also use it to foil opposing removal spells that try and take out our key creatures, so they'll often be forced to take out Skrelv first, which is great if they have to use their valuable removal on our 1-drop. And then the rest of the deck has a lot of the usual suspects. Since we're not tied to any tribal synergy, we get to play with Hopeful Initiate, which is not a soldier, just a human warlock, but a 1/2 with training, so it can pick up additional +1 counters over time if it attacks alongside larger creatures. And the Vindicator at 5 power is very good at enabling the Initiate. Can also maybe remove 2 +1 counters among creatures we control to take out an artifact or enchantment, which can also come up. At 2 mana, the full set of Thalia, which will tax all non-creature spells, both our spells and the opponent's, but the only non-creature spell in our deck is Laydown Arms, which at 2 mana is still very affordable, so it will mostly punish the opponent on a 2/1 with First Strike, so it also attacks and blocks pretty well. Then we've got 3 copies of Entrapped Adversary, can play it on turn 2 as a 3/1 lifelink, but later in the game we can also maybe sink additional mana into it, and then for each 1 and a white we pay when it enters, we'll get to give the team a +1/+1. And then we've got the full set of Guardian of New Benalia, a 2/2 with Enlist, meaning as this creature attacks, we may tap a non-attacking creature we control without Summoning Sickness, and when we do, add its power to this creature until end of turn. And in the case of Guardian, we also get to scry 2 whenever it enlists to potentially help hit our land drops if we need them, or put them on the bottom if we're already satisfied. And then we can also discard a card at any point to make the Guardian indestructible until end of turn and tap it, so that can also save it from some sweeper effects, and will make opposing removal spells a lot more awkward. And at 3 mana, we've got a nice mix of powerful creatures, including the legendary Adlin, which has power equal to the number of creatures we control on a 4 toughness creature with Vigilance, and whenever we attack with any creature, we get to make an attacking 1/1 human token to help go wide and increase Adlin's power, so that's a very fast way to kill the opponent potentially. We've got 3 copies of Steel Seraph, which we can play at 3 mana thanks to Prototype. In the late game, may be played for 6 mana as a 5/4, and then it has Flying, and at the beginning of combat on our turn, target creature we control gains our choice of Flying, Vigilance, or Lifelink until end of turn. All modes incredibly useful. Vigilance if we need to play offense and defense, or to play around a Wandering Emperor, which can exile tapped creatures. Flying, of course, to maybe help close out the game if there's a bit of a board stall, and Lifelink also very useful in a racing situation. Then we've got 3 copies of Brutal Cathar to complement our Laydown Arms as removal to exile opposing creatures for as long as we control it, and then it can also transform to nighttime into the first striking Moonrage Brute, and then if it ever transforms back to daytime after casting 2 spells, it can potentially exile a second creature and keep going. And then we also have 2 copies of the Anointed Peacekeeper, which gives us a bit of hand disruption and additional taxation effects to kind of complement Thalia in that way on a 3/3 with Vigilance. And then just 22 basic planes and an Iganjo, which also benefits from some of our legendary creatures like Skrelv, Thalia, and Adlin, so we can often channel it for just 1 or 2 mana to deal 4 damage to an attacking or blocking creature. So that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, hand seems reasonable. Turn 1, I think I'm still leaning Initiate in case we find a 2-drop so we can start training it. And then next turn can play our Might, setting up Adlin on 3. Okay, let's attack. Opponent might have a cut down available. In which case they'll likely take out the might, but they don't. It's gonna be a cut down on turn 2 instead. Alright, let's hope to connect with our initiate here to make a token. Now Vindicator's not gonna be at its best against mono black, unfortunately, but we still had a nice aggressive start. Trespasser does not block Adeline all that well. So main phase, play Vindicator to grow Adeline. And then question is whether initiate attacks. And I don't think it does quite yet, since we may be able to remove a large blocker with Cathar next turn. But should attack with a token since we get another one. Opponent already down to 12, although we could see Shieldred here make an appearance, or Archfiend, 6/6 flyer. Okay, adversary wasn't bad, can pump the entire team. And then it's not like they can properly block Vindicator. Adeline would trade for Archfiend potentially, which is maybe a concern, so I could still just Brutal Cathar plus Mites, and then next turn adversary should end the game. That seems reasonable too. And then now attack with all, including initiates, since they'll likely have to trump Adeline. Well, that was a powerful curve-out game. And our opponent had a totally functional draw, just maybe missing a 2-drop. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is a little bit light on pressure. We have some 1-drops, which is nice. Lots of removal with double laydown arms. But we're not going to be able to deal a lot of damage. So really hoping to find a bigger creature here. But I'll give it a try. I don't think it's quite bad enough to mulligan. And we should have enough powerful top decks available. But yeah, if we draw a few more lands, we could still be in trouble. There's one of them already. Could be up against Monoblue, Haughty Djinn, in which case not having a more powerful 2-drop to pressure with is a pretty big drawback. Laydown Arm's also not at its best against Tolarian Terror, since that has a very high mana value. A bit better against Haughty Djinn. Yeah, these 2 1-drops are probably not going to be enough. Never mind, opponent maybe a blue-green Toxic deck, in which case double Laydown Arms is not bad. Although of course they'll have plenty of ways to protect, something like a Rot Priest if it shows up. So cards we would love to draw, Brutal Cathar since it doesn't trigger Rot Priest. Thalia would also be very good in this matchup. And anything that can start beating down. So our opponent not off to the fastest start, Vindicator's decent. Would have preferred a creature we could play right now, but I'll take it. Pass it back. So 3 mana going to waste here. And then now we could see them play a Rot Priest with protection, or an Ivy. So yeah, not inclined to wanna remove Ivy here while they have mana available. Just gotta play Vindicator to apply pressure. And then the question is whether we attack with the creatures in play. Since I could attack, opponent plays, let's say, a protection spell, making Ivy indestructible with hexproof. Kills my initiates. I guess we could use the Mites to attack for 1 damage. Sure, I guess that's reasonable. So, pay 2 life. Give protection from blue is fine here. It's not quite protection, but you know what I mean. And get our 1 damage in. And then play Vindicator so we can start trading Initiate next turn as well. It's also possible I could have gotten away, just getting in 2 damage by attacking with both. Could see the ability coming in handy to get past some blockers later. And then Vindicator can hold off Ivy. Our opponent did have a Fading Hope, unfortunately, so it would have been better off just keeping up the Defector Might and playing Vindicator, since that bought the opponent a lot of extra time. Research, okay, opponent is kind of moving all in here on Ivy. The Ward 1 is also annoying, since that means Late on Arms can be played alongside Vindicator next turn. Step 1, play Vindicator. And then we'll leave the Might available, just attack with Initiates. Opponent has another Fading Hope. And we can pay with white mana this time. Okay, so Fading Hope's not gonna work. And we'll see if they have more interaction here. Definitely not your typical blue-green toxic build, lots more interaction than I'm used to. But now time for the Rot Priest. So things are gonna get pretty scary here. Opponent's got 4 cards in hand, so they could deal a lot of poison out of nowhere. And a March to get another Rot Priest, but the good news is our opponent's now tapped out. So our opponent will have 2 Rot Priests in play. And then next turn we can double lay down arms. This attack's not gonna really work out for them, so opponent hangs back. And another Vindicator to draw. Okay, now I think we just eliminate double Rot Priest and ignore Ivy since we have another flying blocker. So, exile Rot Priest, we'll get 2 poison. Otherwise I might have exiled 1 Rot Priest and Ivy, which can double up on the Rot Priest triggers as well. Opponent will gain some life back, but as long as we're not getting poisoned, that's okay. And then I'll leave the Might untapped, in case there's another Fading Hope in our future. Now we're finally gaining some forward momentum. And next turn we can maybe get a second counter on Initiates, at which point we can also blow up enchantments with the ability. We'll pass it back. Opponent's got 2 Rot Priests left in the deck. Curiosity can draw 2 for 1 mana. Pretty nice. Opponent could still buy themselves a lot of time with a blue March, phasing out our Vindicators before we can attack. But no, opponent throws in the towel. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a very nice hand. 1, 2, 3, plenty of disruption as well, especially against the non-creatures. Facing turn 1 plains. Okay, it looks like kind of your more controlling white deck, which should have quite a few non-creature spells. So Thalia's going to be excellent. And then Peacekeeper can potentially delay some more removal spells. Okay, Bankbuster for 3 mana. Now let's start with Peacekeeper, which could also name Bankbuster. Emperor costs 5 mana, Announcements and Restoration cost 4. So very interesting spot here. Given that Peacekeeper has Vigilance, Emperor's most likely going after Thalia, which we can replace. Even Steel Seraph can give Vigilance, so I don't think Emperor's a huge concern. Restoration can essentially ramp the opponents after they maybe chump with a farmhand to buy more time. And then by ramping, they also make Thalia less effective. And then there's Wedding Announcement, which is also quite powerful if they get it going, just making some chum blockers over and over again. Don't think Elspeth is a concern, so it's between Restoration and Announcement. I think I'm gonna go with Restoration, since we can fly over the Announcement tokens at least. And then we'll see a Wedding Announcement most likely. Okay, so time for Steel Seraph. So do we give Initiate Vigilance? Yeah. And now with 2 counters we can also blow up artifacts or enchantments, which could come up. Okay, opponent has another wedding announcement instead, but now double Steel Seraph can just fly over. And that should be pretty close to killing the opponents. So if I play another Steel Seraph, we give Initiate and Peacekeeper flying, attack for 9, put them to 1. And unless they have a sweeper, we should be fine. Thalia's gonna hang back since Bankbuster can crew. 0 points at 1. Pass it back. So, for the opponent, best case scenario, hit a land drop, play Emperor to exile Steel Seraph, gain 2, and then still die to Steel Seraph. So, yeah, opponent packs it in. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand could use an extra land or 2, although Guardian can potentially enlist to help us cry. And then we've got some cheap removal with Laydown Arms, so we're not gonna get run over. Let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 planes, no play. Alright, third land's gonna be huge here. Opponent mono white, so it could be a mirror match. Opponent's got their own Guardian, so at the very least we can lay down arms to exile it. Alright, I guess now I'm also liking play another Guardian attack. Can basically trade a card from our hands. And then I could see discarding Vindicator, since it's kind of pricey and does get removed by opposing Cathars and Laid on Arms, so it's not at its best. And then I'm sure opponent's going to save their Guardian as well. Just want to try and play another creature so we can start enlisting. Opponent got rid of a plains. It does sort of benefit the opponent to make this 1-for-1 trade, since they were on the draw. So that they have an extra card to play with. Okay, Spirited Companion, so that goes into a slightly different direction now. Take our turn, another lay down arms. Okay, I think we just exile the Guardian and then enlist. So hopefully we get to scry into a land for next turn. And then do I want another Steel Seraph afterwards? It's probably fine. Give the team flying. We'll see if the opponent wants to chump. They do. Opponent passes with 4 mana untapped. So it could be a Wandering Emperor. In which case, Steel Seraph giving Guardian Vigilance is pretty good. And then I can still enlist. They can exile the tapped Guardian that we enlist with, but at least we'll still get a nice attack in. Okay, there's Emperor. They could also make a Samurai, force me to discard to save Guardian. The other opponent's gonna -2 as we expected. And then do I want Hopeful Initiates? Not without a 4th land. Steel Seraph, I think I'm still happy to keep. And hit them for 4. So if they start making tokens, Brutal Cathar can handle them. If not, the 2nd Seraph can maybe set up Flying and Vigilance on the Guardian, while we can keep enlisting. So our opponent probably has another Wandering Emperor lined up, so how do we want to play around it? Could play a 2nd Steel Seraph, and then just give both Vigilance attack, although then they can put a +1 counter on the Samurai, and force me to discard. If I give Flying and Vigilance to Guardian and enlist tapping Steel Seraph, they can exile the Steel Seraph with Emperor, so that's not ideal. So maybe Guardian does not attack here, and then just play another Steel Seraph and give Vigilance and Lifelink to the first one. Or even Brutal Cathar exiling the token, but we can do that later. So another Steel Seraph seems fine. This way we don't tap any creatures. And if next turn we draw lands, we can maybe double spell. If not, we'll likely draw a spell we can cast. So no surprises, 2nd Emperor. We'll make a Samurai. Although 2 flyers can pressure it nicely. And then Brutal Cathar also good at dealing with tokens, so not too concerned. Bigger concern could be another Planeswalker here, the new Emperor at 6 mana. Reducing our board to a single creature. That would be rough. So we'd love to find a Thalia to delay that. Take 3. Their opponent declined to make another token, going for a +1 counter instead. And they have yet to activate Emperor in their turn. Okay, another counter. Plays into our Brutal Cathar. And Defector Might's not bad either. So, play Brutal Cathar, Vigilance, Vigilance on Seraph, take out Emperor. And then what do we do with the Guardian? Do they have a 3rd Emperor? Maybe. Although at that point I probably don't care anymore. Okay, damage happens. Opponent at 16, and we'll see if they have some board wipes incoming here. Their own Steel Seraph for 3 mana, that's okay. Can use our Laydown Arms to handle that. And our opponent's got their own to deal with Guardian, fine. Does sort of imply that a sweeper might be incoming, since they got rid of the only potentially indestructible creature. But I think we should still get rid of the opponent's Steel Seraph here with our own Laydown Arms. Question is whether to add even more to the board or hold something back. So can go for Vigilance again. Don't know if holding back Defector Might's really gonna accomplish much. So I think we run it out. And then I should probably hold lands in case we want to discard to a future Guardian. Okay, another Laydown Arms on the Might. And a wedding announcement, so kind of surprised they're not going after Steel Seraph. Maybe they think it has mana value 6, but we just exiled theirs with only 3 planes. So we're kind of going all out now. Exile the token. Again, go for Vigilance. Don't really need the lifelink, and might as well play around another Emperor. So if they baited out all these creatures to set up a depopulate, props to them. Possible they have the 6 mana Emperor, but just never found a land for it. Which hopefully stays true here. Opponent forced to draw. And our opponent explodes. Alright, so a bit of a strange game, but definitely worked out for us. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. Hand seems decent. Initiate into most likely Thalia on 2. There are some matchups where we can maybe deduce that the opponent's not going to have a lot of non-creature spells and we're better off with Guardian. But against Jund, they could have some cheap removal spells that we can make more expensive. And then next turn keep adding onto the pressure. Scrapgorger can soak up some damage, but Adlin is going to help us go wide now. Perfect. So our opponent with 4 mana. What can they do? Maybe an answer to Adlin. Just another Scrapgorger for now. So we get to train Initiate up to 3 power in a second. Still, I think, happy to play a land. And then play Guardian and Initiate to grow Adlin even more. And smash. So a savage start for us. Opponent did have the cut down, which they can still cast. That's fair. But still gonna take 8 damage here if they block Thalia. So they better come up with a big play here to stabilize. Okay, run on 7 certainly counts. So we would love to draw Brutal Cathar now to exile the Tree Folk token, which the opponent's about to make. Although it's possible we might still be able to win through a large Tree Folk. Opponent blocks Adlin. We've got 3 tokens, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, that should still do it. And the Tree Folk's not even all that large. The size does indeed matter. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems quite good. Initiate into probably Guardian. And then if we draw land, great. If not, can still play our Defector Might. Let's see what we're facing. Turn 1 Swamp, and seems like they have a cut down available. That's too bad. So we'll hit for 1, and then at least Guardian can survive some early removal. Laydown Arms also kind of wants us to pick up additional planes. But at least Peacekeeper can mess up the opponent's curve while Steel Seraph flies over. Okay, we got our 1 damage in. Opponent maybe being patient to see if they could kill our 2-drop. But now Guardian can become indestructible. Okay, so no cut down end of turn. Get to untap. Another Laydown Arms, not looking great. So let's move to combat. And then I think we prefer training over enlisting, even though enlisting would help hit my land drops. And if they are holding onto removal spell for Initiate, maybe this is still the way to go. Since even if they remove it, we'll still get to scry. Opponent did have a go for the throat. We'll make Guardian indestructible, discarding a Laydown Arms. And play our Might. And then just keep lands, don't need Guardian. Okay, so that worked out. Our Might can protect against future spot removal. And now we get to have a look with our Peacekeeper. Okay, Black Sun's Twilight gives -X/-X, so that one we cannot protect against with Indestructible. And didn't have our Might available yet. That's okay. Play Peacekeeper, have a look, and then we can decide what to do next. Well, that's quite the hand. Double Shieldred, Phyrexian Obliterator, and an Invoke Despair. So probably name Shieldred, and then we can try and outrace Obliterator with Seraph giving flying. And Invoke we can easily sacrifice like an Initiate. And preventing the life gain from Shieldred seems more relevant here than anything else. So we'll leave Defector Might's ability available in case they draw spot removal, although their opponent's very likely to just tap out for Obliterator. So I think we still send in both, at least for now. Next turn, protecting Steel Seraph is going to be more important. Okay, there's Obliterator. Now, one more land and we can just exile it with a Laydown Arms. For now, Steel Seraph. Could also activate Defector Might on Initiates. Give Peacekeeper flying. Initiates can attack past black creatures. And that way we get to train, make it a little bit bigger. Before we'll probably sacrifice it to Invoke Despair if they have a 5th land. Opponent at 9. So now if they tap out for Invoke Despair, we just sacrifice Might. I guess that assumes Obliterator attacks, which it probably won't. So yeah, I could get rid of the Might, and then if the opponent attacks with Obliterator, they would be dead on the way back. And if they don't attack, we still hit them for 6 in the air, and then we might be able to go wide from there as well. So maybe Might goes over Initiate. Opponent has to sit back. And then we'll fly Initiate, attack with Steel Seraph to train. And if we draw planes for Laydown Arms, we can fire that off as well. Opponent stays back, another Might. Okay, so play Initiate, play Might, attack. Since their opponent's mono-black, I'm not putting them on having any sweepers like Path of Peril, which would be painful here. So maybe if they go Swamp into a Corrupt, they can gain a bunch of life back and maybe still stabilize. Shieldred for 6 mana is not going to do it, and our opponent explodes. So yeah, once again, Steel Seraph flying over for the win, being incredibly useful in a lot of these matchups. Okay, so I was quite impressed with this new build of mono-white aggro. You kind of wanted to have a lot of planes for laydown arms anyway, so giving up Mishra's Foundry not a huge drawback, as we now get to play with a nice 5/5 flyer, which shines against red and green decks especially, but still just nice in most matchups as a way to apply a bit of pressure. And then some of the other new additions, like the Might at 1 mana, has also proven to be a nice addition to the deck, as both a way to protect our key creatures, as well as maybe push through some damage by preventing blocks. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.